This is Steve McNallen of the Asatru Folk Assembly, bringing you the latest on the revival of the ancestral faith of Northern Europe and the awakening of the European descended peoples everywhere. The gods and goddesses never went away. They are with us always. And now they stir, and we reclaim our spiritual birthright. A glorious dawn awaits. Hail our awakening. Hail Asatru rising. Chris writes, I just wanted to take the time and thank you for all the hard work you have done with the AFA. Your articles posted on the AFA website are what convinced me to finally choose the path of my ancestors. If it had not been for those articles, I might still be aimlessly wandering on my spiritual path. Keep up the outstanding work and know that there are others out there just like me that will bump into your website and receive inspiration from your words. Chris, thank you for letting us know we have made a difference in your life. I hope all our listeners will visit our site at www.runestone.org and read some of the articles that made such an impact on Chris. The voice of the ancestors is calling you home. This is our very first podcast from Asatru Rising. It is important to me that Asatru Rising develops an audience that includes not just people who are already following Asatru, but ordinary men and women who barely know what we are about. I want Mr. and Ms. Middle American to understand that what we have is completely relevant to the issues they face in daily life. With that in mind, the first part of tonight's program is a simple introduction to what Asatru is, a native European religion. I'll give a little information on the historical background of our faith and impart at least an idea of the attitude or the spirit that underlies it. The second part of tonight's podcast will examine how the values of Asatru affect what our organization, the Asatru Folk Assembly, actually does. Without further introduction, then, let's begin. What is Asatru? Asatru is an expression of the native pre-Christian spirituality of Europe. More specifically, it is the way by which the Germanic peoples have traditionally related to the divine and to the world around them. From Iceland to Russia, from the frozen north of Scandinavia to the Mediterranean, the Germanic peoples wandered and settled over a span of thousands of years. Today, their descendants are spread around the world. We may refer to ourselves as Americans or English, Germans or Canadians, but behind these labels lurks an older, more essential identity. Our forefathers were Angles and Saxons, Lombards and Heruli, Goths and Vikings, and as sons and daughters of these peoples, we are united by ties of blood and culture undimmed by the centuries. Asatru is our native way, just as there is Native American religion and Native African religion, so there is Native European religion. Asatru is one of its expressions. It gave our ancestors comfort in millennia past, and it can give us strength and inspiration today. The word Asatru comes to us from Old Norse, the tongue of the ancient Scandinavians, where it means those loyal to the gods. Since the ancient Scandinavian version of our way is the best documented one, it has given us much of Asatru's terminology and imagery. The soul of Asatru, however, is not confined to the Scandinavian model, but encapsulates the beliefs of all the Germanic peoples. Indeed, Asatru reflects the deeper religiosity common to virtually all of the nations of Europe. As part of the great European folkway, Asatru has a number of characteristic beliefs. Some of these are: number 1, the world is good. Prosperity is good. Life is good, and we should live it with joy and enthusiasm. Number 2, we are free to shape our lives to the extent allowed by our skill, courage, and might. There is no predestination, no fatalism, no limitations imposed by the will of any external deity. Number 3, we do not need salvation. All we need is the freedom to face our destiny with courage and honor. Number 4, we are connected to all our ancestors. They are a part of us. We, in turn, will be a part of our descendants. Number 5, we are also linked to all our living kin, to our families, and to every man and woman rooted in the tribes of Europe. They are our greater family. Number 6, we are connected to nature and subject to its laws. The holy powers often express themselves in nature's beauty and might. Number 7, we believe that morality does not depend on commandments, but rather arises from the dignity and honor of the noble-minded man and woman. Number 8, we do not fear the holy powers or consider ourselves their slaves. On the contrary, we share community and fellowship with the divine. The holy powers encourage us to grow and advance to higher levels. And number 9, we honor the holy powers under the names given them by our Northern Germanic ancestors. We practice Asatru by honoring the turning of the seasons, the ancestors, the divine, and ourselves in everyday life. Asatru is about roots. It's about connections. It's about coming home. In the last few minutes, I've given you a very quick overview of Asatru. When we resume with part 2, after a few announcements, I will describe how the Asatru Folk Assembly on the organizational level puts some of our beliefs into action. Sheila and I, as well as many other AFA members, will be at the Northwest All Heathen Jambermoot in Scott Mill, Oregon, from July the 30th to August the 1st. This event is a great opportunity to meet others who share our same traditions, values, and connections to our gods and ancestors. Now, the AFA has rented a yurt at the site for socializing and for rituals. Other well-known AFA members who will be there include Thorgan and Katie, and of course, our Northwest Folk Builders, Michael and Kat Burke, among others. This is a non-denominational, non-political gathering. No matter what branch of Germanic religion you follow, regardless of your organizational affiliation or lack of one, Jambermoot is an invitation to get to know one another on a personal basis. For more information, contact Bertha Figard. Her email address is befigard@yahoo.com. I hope we'll see some of you there. The AFA's recent Midsummer Gathering set a new standard for such events. You can see our slideshow, set to the magical music of Lasher Keene, on YouTube under the title Midsummer 2010 Asatru Folk Assembly, and it will be on our website as well at www.runestone.org. Do you want to study the runes, but are having trouble finding a short, simple, and useful guide to launch your efforts? A Runic Inspiration by Stephen A. McNallen and Maddie Hutter is a compact, extremely practical introduction to using the 24 runes of the Elder Futhark for your daily meditations. Each page includes the key concepts surrounding one of the runes, plus a relevant affirmation and an original poem by A.J. Dillon Davis. It's designed to be easily carried, and its spiral binding allows it to lie open for easy reference during meditation and ritual. You can order it from the online store at the Asatru Folk Assembly website, www.runestone.org. Are you in the mood for some powerful, well-crafted articles on Germanic religion, radical traditionalism, and folk culture? Then you need to discover Tyr. Each of the 3 Tyr issues published to date is packed with hundreds of pages of stimulating essays by such luminaries as Julius Evola, Alain de Benoit, Steve Paulington, Edward Thorson, Nigel Pennick, and many more. To order and to see details of the contents of each issue, visit the Asatru Folk Assembly's online store by going to www.runestone.org. In Part 1, I introduced the idea of Asatru as a native European religion with a strong set of beliefs. But from the standpoint of an organization, how does the AFA function in regard to these beliefs? As an aid to answering this question, I pulled out an article I wrote back in the summer of 2000, almost exactly 10 years ago. It's just as true today as it was back then. In that article, I spelled out 5 ways we make our organizational values a reality. Number 1, because we revere our holy gods and goddesses and treasure the wisdom of our ancestors, the AFA practices, promotes, and develops the religion of Asatru. Over the years, we have sponsored countless gatherings, composed rituals, written supporting documentation, and produced informative materials designed to tell others about the way of the Northlands. Number 2, because we are linked to all our kin and wish to see them thrive, the AFA works for the good of the folk. We serve the folk within, those who have already returned to the religion which is their birthright, and the folk without, those who share our ancestry but who have not yet come to the ways of their forebears. Anything which aids the survival and welfare of our people is ultimately spiritual in nature. Number 3, because we believe that kin stand together in support of each other and in the honoring of our gods and goddesses, the AFA builds social structures consistent with our heritage and history. While Asatru has a personal, individual component, as do all religions, it also has a collective or a group aspect. Through our folk builders, we seek to construct supportive networks at family, kindred, and higher levels which will serve all our members. Number 4, because we value the freedom and dignity which arose from the traditional social structure of the Germanic peoples, the AFA is the mother of tribes, or, as the Gothic historian Jordanes called the ancient Northlands, a womb of nations. One of our tasks is to seed the retribalization of Asatru and give birth to the reconstructed European tribes. This is an extension of creating the social structures described earlier, and it is also one of the most important ways we work for the long-term good of our folk. Number 5, because we want to see a world in which differences are honored and preserved, the AFA stands proudly among the other ethno-religious entities from around the world, cooperating with all who wish to preserve the varied human mosaic in opposition to global monoculture. Ours is a native religion, the product of our unique spirituality, and we stand in support of other native groups which seek to preserve their identity and their ancestral heritage. What I have presented in this podcast is only the beginning of the Asatru story. The last few decades have witnessed the dramatic rebirth of our ancient, yet ever new, religion. You can be a part of this rebirth. I urge you to subscribe to this podcast. I am committed to putting out our message once a week. Sometimes our program will be shorter than this one, just some relevant news and comments, perhaps insight into the nature and practice of our religion. Other times it will be longer. Sometimes it will be an interview. But I will be here slugging away, serving the gods and the ancestors. Subscribe, and you'll get every installment. I also urge you to visit the AFA's website. And if you like what you see there, get involved. We want men and women of quality and commitment as AFA members, people who are both idealists and realists, folk who wish to live their lives imbued with a heroic outlook. These are saga times, and we are writing our sagas with our daily lives. Help us write this chapter. Only when we realize we are a river will we stop drowning in puddles. This is Steve McNallen of the Asatru Folk Assembly. I'll be back next week.